Greetings, Stock Explorers, and welcome. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something potentially quite impactful for the market.
That's right. We're looking at DWave Quantum Inc. and the recent launch of their Advantage2 quantum computer.
Our goal here is really to break it down, look at the good, the bad, understand what this launch actually means for anyone thinking about, investing in this space.
Exactly. We want to give you a solid grasp of Advantage2, not just the tech specs, but its position in the market, and critically, what you should be watching for going forward. It's cutting-edge stuff, exciting, but complex.
Okay, let's jump right in then. Advantage2. General availability announced May 2025. DWave says it's their top annealing system. What's under the hood? What are the real upgrades here?
Well, first off, it packs over 4,400 qubits, which is a lot, but maybe more importantly, they've introduced this new Zephyr topology.
Zephyr topology, okay.
Yeah, it gives each qubit 20 connections to its neighbors. Their previous system, Advantage, used what they called the Pegasus topology, which only had 15-way connectivity.
All right, so more connections. But why should potential investors really care about that? What's the practical impact?
It's actually pretty crucial. Think about mapping a really complicated real-world problem onto a quantum chip. Lots of interconnected variables, right?
Like a big messy web.
Exactly. More connections between qubits lets you represent that web more directly, more efficiently. You don't need these long, sort of artificial chains of qubits to link things up, which can be less stable.
Ah, okay. So it makes it easier to actually use the qubits for complex problems. Less overhead, maybe.
Precisely. Potentially leading to more robust, more accurate calculations. That's the idea, anyway.
Got it. Now, I also saw notes about a 40% jump in energy scale and a big drop in noise, 75%. How do those translate into investment value?
Good points. The higher energy scale, think of it like having finer control knobs. It lets you define the problem you're trying to solve with more precision.
Oh, more detail.
Right, which could lead to better, more nuanced answers, especially for tricky optimization tasks. And the noise reduction, that's huge.
Why is that?
Well, quantum systems are incredibly sensitive to, background interference. Noise causes errors. So 75% less noise means potentially much higher reliability.
More dependable results.
Exactly, which makes the whole thing more attractive for serious practical applications. Better potential ROI, really.
Makes sense. And there was also mention of qubit coherence doubling and something called a fast anneal feature.
Yes. Coherence is basically how long a qubit can hold on to its quantum state before, well, it decoheres.
Before it loses its quantumness.
Sort of, yeah. Longer coherence means more time for complex calculations, potentially faster solutions. And the fast anneal feature speeds up the core process of finding the solution, the annealing itself.
How does that help?
By doing the computation faster, it spends less time exposed to those external disturbances we talked about, noise, temperature fluctuations, etc. It helps maintain that coherence at scale.
So it's like getting the calculation done before the outside world messes it up too much.
That's a good way to put it. It improves stability and speed, making the whole process more practical and efficient.
Okay, so it sounds like these aren't just random improvements. They all kind of work together, addressing some core challenges.
Absolutely. It's synergistic. Better connectivity for mapping, higher precision, less noise, longer coherence, faster computation. The combined effect is aimed at better solutions, faster results, and tackling bigger problems than before.
Which obviously could make DWave's offering more appealing to
This
businesses.
is the goal.
So that's the theory. What about the proof? Do the performance benchmarks back this up? What are we seeing in terms of real-world speed and quality?
This is where it gets interesting for potential returns. DWave reported some pretty striking benchmark results. On one standard test problem, these 3D lattice spin glasses, they found Advantage2 was several orders of magnitude faster than the older Advantage system, and it produced better quality solutions.
Several orders of magnitude. That's not just a little bit faster. That sounds like a step change.
It really does. And another example. For problems needing high precision, Advantage2 apparently matched the quality of the older system, but did it in anneals that were over 10,000 times faster.
10,000 times faster. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's a massive leap for certain types of problems. And then there was a benchmark from late 2024 on a 4,400 plus qubit processor. It showed performance up to 25,000 times faster on those 3D lattice problems, 5 times better solutions on high-precision tasks, and it beat the old Advantage system in 99% of satisfiability tests.
Okay, those numbers are definitely attention-grabbing. It really does suggest it's not just about more qubits, but better qubits, or at least better use of them.
Exactly. And the key takeaway for anyone looking at this from an investment angle is what this enables. These gains potentially allow solving much larger, more complex, real-world business problems.
And they can handle even bigger stuff with hybrid solvers, right?
Correct. By combining Advantage2 with classical computers, their hybrid solvers can tackle problems with up to 2 million variables and constraints. That massively extends the practical reach for big industrial applications.
So potentially a much wider market they can address now.
That's the hope.
We talk about Advantage2 addressing limitations. What were the main headaches with the older systems? And how does this new one fix them, potentially making it a safer bet for customers?
A big one was that problem embedding we touched on earlier. With fewer connections on older chips, mapping complex, highly connected problems was often inefficient.
You mentioned those long qubit chains.
Right, you had to use these chains to represent single variables sometimes, and those chains were more vulnerable to noise and errors. The Zephyr topology in Advantage2, with its richer connections, tackles that head-on.
More direct mapping, less vulnerability.
Potentially, yes, leading to more reliable results, which is obviously critical if a business is going to depend on this.
And what about just the raw quality and speed of the answers? That's got to be crucial for showing value.
Absolutely. The improved energy scale gives more precision. Less noise means a cleaner computation. Longer coherence gives more time to explore. They all work together.
To find better solutions faster.
That's the aim. It increases the odds of finding a really high-quality solution, and the fast anneal feature speeds up that whole search process, making it more competitive against classical methods, especially for time-sensitive stuff.
And that fast deal, specifically helping with external noise, how much of a difference does that make?
It could be quite significant for reliability. By getting the quantum part done quickly, you minimize the window where environmental jitter can mess things up.
Like taking a quick photo instead of a long exposure in shaky conditions.
That's a great analogy. It helps make the results more stable and dependable, which builds confidence both for users and, well, potentially for investors too.
So it really does sound like a holistic upgrade, all these pieces fitting together.
I think that's fair to say. It's the synergy, connectivity, noise, coherence, speed that makes Advantage2 a potentially major step forward for DWave.
Okay, so it's more powerful. But power isn't everything. Is it actually easier for businesses to use? Is it commercially ready?
DWave seems to be putting a lot of effort there. Their Leap Quantum cloud service is key. It gives access globally. They tout high uptime, fast response security certs like SOC2 Type 2.
So lowering the barrier to entry. You don't need to buy the multi-million-dollar box right away.
Exactly. Companies can experiment and even deploy through the cloud, and for those really big problems, the hybrid solvers are crucial again.
Handling up to 2 million variables, you said.
Right, and importantly, users don't necessarily need deep quantum expertise to leverage that. The solvers handle splitting the work between quantum and classical. They even have specialized ones, like a nonlinear solver.
Making it more accessible?
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah.
Though they do still offer the on-premises option, too, for customers with high security needs or complex HPC integrations. They're trying to cover the bases.
What about tools for developers? Support?
They have their Ocean SDK, which is Python-based, pretty standard for developers, and they offer professional services DWave launches to help companies get started, find problems, build applications.
And a free trial thing.
Yeah, the Leap Quantum Launchpad. It's all about making the tech accessible and, crucially, showing it can solve current problems. That's a bit of a differentiator from some gate model approaches, still focused heavily on R&D.
Near-term applicability.
Yeah.
That's definitely something investors look for. Do they have real examples, proof points?
They do. We mentioned Ford Otosan earlier optimizing vehicle production scheduling. They cut the time from 30 minutes down to under 5 for scheduling 1,000 vehicles. That's a concrete efficiency gain.
That's significant.
And Japan Tobacco using Advantage2 prototypes for AI in drug discovery, generating better drug-like molecules. These examples show tangible business value being explored or delivered right now.
Okay, practicalities. How long does it take to actually get one of these things, if you buy it? Sales cycle, manufacturing, delivery?
Well, for the on-premises systems, it's a big purchase, so the sales cycle can be long. Installation takes about 4 weeks, then another 6 weeks for calibration on site.
Okay, so not instant.
Definitely not. But DWave says Advantage2 is production ready and available now. The cloud access via Leap is already live, of course.
Have they actually sold any Advantage2 systems yet, besides upgrades? Any confirmed installations we know about?
Yes, 2 key ones. The Jülich Supercomputing Centre in Germany bought a system that's set to be upgraded to Advantage2 and integrated with their massive Jupyter supercomputer. That deal was worth $12.6 million in revenue for DWave in Q1 2025.
Wow, okay. That's a big one.
Huge. And Davidson Technologies in Alabama is also getting an Advantage2 installed, mainly for national security research. So there's definite traction, particularly in the high-performance computing and government sectors.
But specific timelines for, say, new orders aren't public.
Not really detailed, no, but the available now suggests they're taking orders. These big system sales will likely be infrequent but very significant revenue hits when they happen.
Which leads us nicely into their revenue model. It's a mix, right? System sales, cloud access, services.
It is. Direct system sales like Jülich, recurring revenue from their Leap cloud platform, which they call QCS, quantum computing as a service, and then professional services revenue.
And that Q1 2025 revenue, the $15 million, heavily skewed by that Jülich sale.
Massively. $12.6 million of the $15 million was from that one sale. The remaining $2.4 million came from QCS and services.
So what's the long-term plan? Are they aiming to rely on these big, lumpy sales?
Not according to their past statements. Back in 2022, they indicated a strategic goal of having over 90% of revenue come from recurring sources, mainly Leap QSAS.
Like a typical SaaS model.
Exactly. But the reality right now is that these big system sales are still a major driver. Making that transition to mostly recurring revenue is going to be critical for their long-term financial stability.
We don't know the specific pricing for Advantage2 on the cloud yet, though.
Not from the material we reviewed, no.
Oh.
That detail would certainly help assess the economics of that QCS transition.
Okay, what about usage? Are people actually using Advantage2, even the prototypes before the launch? Any signs of real engagement?
Yeah, the numbers look pretty positive there. Between June 2022 and the launch in May 2025, customers ran over 20.6 million problems on the Advantage2 prototypes.
That sounds like a lot.
It is, and what's maybe more telling is that usage increased by 134% in the 6 months right before the official launch. That suggests building momentum and interest.
Good sign.
In total, over 200 million problems have been run on all DWave systems combined. The CEO also mentioned a lot of interest from governments and supercomputing centers, specifically for Advantage2.
And that trial program, the Launchpad, any conversions yet?
They mentioned the first Launchpad customer intends to switch to a paid plan within 2 months, so early signs of that funnel working, potentially.
Okay, encouraging signs. But the big question for investors always comes back to, will this interest turn into sustained revenue growth?
That's the million-dollar or perhaps billion-dollar question. They need to convert trials, keep cloud customers happy, and land more system sales. And there is a potential red flag.
Uh-oh.
Their overall bookings actually declined 64% year-over-year in Q1 2025, down to $1.6 million.
Ouch. So while revenue looked great because of that one big pass sale, new business signing up slowed down.
It seems that way for Q1, yes. That's definitely something to watch very closely. It raises questions about future revenue if bookings don't pick back up.
Right. Okay, shifting gears slightly, what kinds of problems is Advantage2 actually good at solving? Where does it shine?
As an annealing quantum computer, its sweet spot is complex optimization problems, finding the best solution out of a huge number of possibilities, often with constraints.
Like scheduling, logistics, that kind of thing.
Exactly, but it's also being applied to material simulation and certain types of AI and machine learning tasks, too.
Can you give examples across different industries?
Sure. Logistics and transport, route optimization, fleet management, manufacturing, production scheduling, supply chain, life sciences, drug discovery, like the Japan tobacco example, finance, portfolio optimization, risk analysis, government and national security, resource allocation, even things like optimizing blockchain hashing.
So a pretty broad range of complex tasks, and the improvements in Advantage2 connectivity, noise, etc. help tackle these bigger versions.
Well, that's the idea. The core improvements allow it to handle more complex versions of these problems, and the hybrid solvers help scale things up to industrial size.
Let's revisit those specific research collaborations. They seem important for proving the tech. Japan, tobacco, and drug discovery. What was the key outcome there?
They used an Advantage2 prototype with AI, specifically large language models, to generate potential drug molecules.
Okay.
The quantum-enhanced approach reportedly achieved better accuracy with fewer parameters and generated molecules that were rated higher on drug likeness than classical methods alone.
So potentially speeding up or improving early-stage drug discovery.
That's the potential, yes. And JT stated they intend to keep developing this quantum AI, which could mean a long-term commercial relationship for DWave. Advantage2 was key in providing high-quality data for the AI.
Very interesting. What about Jülich in Germany? Beyond buying the system, what research are they doing?
They're using it for advanced research in quantum AI, optimization, even things like predicting protein DNA binding using machine learning.
And the integration with their big supercomputer, Jupiter.
That's a big deal. It enables these large-scale hybrid quantum classical workflows. It could really push the boundaries and lead to new algorithms with broad commercial potential. Plus, it's high-profile validation.
Right, getting buy-in from a major supercomputing center. And Los Alamos National Lab. What's their focus?
They're using Advantage2 prototypes for fundamental science modeling, condensed matter physics, magnetic materials.
Which could lead to new materials, better electronics.
Potentially, yes. Discoveries in these areas could underpin future technologies in energy, electronics, and more. For DWave, it's valuable validation and feedback for their hardware development.
So these collaborations are really multifaceted potential: revenue, validation, identifying new killer apps.
Absolutely. They're strategically vital for demonstrating value and guiding future development.
Back to the tech for a moment. That Zephyr topology, the 20-way connection, that's the core difference architecturally. And what's next on the roadmap?
Zephyr is definitely a core differentiator, enabling the performance boost through better problem mapping. And it works with the other improvements: energy scale, noise reduction, coherence, fast anneal. It's the whole package.
In future plans?
They've mentioned an Advantage2 performance update processor expected in 2026, designed to support new annealing methods. So iterative improvements on this platform.
Any mention of even more qubits soon? I thought I heard 7,000 mentioned before.
There might have been earlier projections, but the current GA version has the 4,400 plus teri. The longer-term vision is ambitious systems with over 100,000 qubits. But that's going to require major breakthroughs, especially in connecting multiple chips together.
Right, a big engineering challenge down the road. What about customer support? If a company buys this or uses the cloud, what help do they get, and who are they really targeting?
They seem to offer pretty comprehensive support installation, calibration, maintenance for on-site systems, plus support for cloud users. And those development resources we mentioned, the Leap service, Ocean SDK, the launch program, the trial launch pad.
And the target industries?
Primarily those facing complex optimization challenges: logistics, manufacturing, life sciences, finance, government labs, national security, AI. Anywhere finding the absolute best solution is tough and valuable.
Okay. Now, we need to touch on security. There were some headlines about DWave systems being used by researchers, I think in China, related to breaking RSA encryption. What's the real story there for investors?
Right, that definitely caused some ripples. It's important to get the context right. Yes, researchers published work showing they used DWave systems, along with classical techniques, to factor some relatively small numbers, like 22-bit and 50-bit RSA integers.
Okay, small numbers. How small compared to what we use?
Immensely small. Modern RSA uses keys that are 2048 or even 4096 bits long. Factoring a 50-bit number is scientifically interesting, but it poses absolutely zero threat to current encryption standards.
So it's not like Advantage2 can suddenly break everyone's secure communications.
Not even close. And critically, DWave's annealers aren't built to run Shor's algorithm, which is the famous quantum algorithm theoretically capable of breaking RSA. That requires a different type of quantum computer, a gate model one.
And classical computers help in that research too.
Yes, classical preprocessing and algorithms played a big part. For perspective, classical computers factored an 829-bit number back in 2020. The consensus is that strong RSA is safe from quantum attacks until at least 2035, and you'd likely need millions of stable qubits for Shor's algorithm.
Far beyond Advantage2.
Far beyond any current quantum computer. DWave's security focus seems more on using quantum for security, like their blockchain proof-of-work research, not breaking existing codes.
Okay, so bottom line for investors. Advantage2 breaking RSA is not a realistic near-term concern.
Correct. It's important academic work, but not a practical threat to current encryption.
So wrapping up the commercial readiness, overall assessment, is Advantage2 ready for prime time?
I'd say it's commercially ready for specific types of problems: complex optimization, simulation within those target industries we discussed. It's best suited for sophisticated users or those willing to work closely with DWave support.
Still a learning curve involved.
For quantum computing generally, yes. DWave is trying to flatten that with tools and services. The market potential is huge. BCG estimates the near-term quantum TAM at maybe $1 billion, long-term $150 billion.
And optimization, DWave's specialty, is a chunk of that.
Roughly 25% according to BCG. So maybe $250 million near-term, $37.5 billion long-term just for optimization. DWave is uniquely positioned in that annealing segment.
But broader adoption depends on
easier use, clearer ROI across more applications, and just the market maturing overall.
Okay, let's pivot fully to the financials now. Q1 2025. You mentioned the record numbers. Can you recap the highlights?
Sure. Record revenue, $15.0 million, up 509% year over year. Record gross profit, $13.9 million. Record gross margin, 92.5%. Net loss significantly down to $5.4 million. Adjusted EBITDA loss also way down. And a record cash position of $304.3 million at the end of March.
Impressive headline numbers, but driven almost entirely by that one Jülich sale.
Overwhelmingly, $12.6 million of the $15 million revenue came from that single transaction. It made the quarter look fantastic, but it highlights the reliance on these big, lumpy deals right now.
So the underlying recurring revenue from cloud and services was only $2.4 million in Q1.
That's right. Still growing, presumably, but dwarfed by the system sale in that particular quarter. The high margin on system sales is good, but the volatility is the risk investors need to weigh.
And the path to actual profitability. Management thinks the cash they have is enough.
They've stated they believe that $304 million cash is sufficient to reach profitability, defined as positive adjusted EBITDA and net income.
How do they get there?
The plan involves more system sales, like Jülich, growing that recurring Leap QBTS revenue significantly, continued tech leadership, commercializing applications from collaborations, and keeping expenses in check.
But that drop in Q1 bookings is a worry.
It is. Bookings falling 64% year over year to $1.6 million is a concern for future revenue. That trend needs to reverse. Plus, their stock valuation, the price-to-sales ratio, is high, implying the market expects significant future growth. Managing cash burn is crucial.
So looking forward, what are the absolute key things investors should track? The critical milestones.
Okay, number 1. Growth in recurring revenue from Leap. That needs to climb steadily.
Got it.
2. Securing more Advantage2 system sales. Jülich can't be a one-off. 3. Converting trial users into paying customers. Show the funnel works.
Makes sense.
4. Progress on the tech roadmap. Performance update processor. Movement towards the 100K qubit goal. 5. Outcomes from those key research collaborations. Japan, Tobacco, Jülich, Los Alamos. Do they lead to commercial deals?
Right.
6. Watch those booking trends very carefully. They predict future revenue.
Yes.
7. Cash burn and operating expenses. Are they managing them effectively? 8. The competitive landscape. How do they stack up? And finally, investor sentiment itself, reflecting all of this.
Okay, that's a comprehensive list. So to summarize this whole deep dive, Advantage2 looks like a genuine leap forward technologically for DWave. Performance improvements are compelling, applications are emerging, and that Q1 revenue bump was certainly eye-catching.
Absolutely. Lots of positives on the technology and potential side. But, and it's a significant but, investors need to weigh the uncertainties. The reliance on big, infrequent sales, that recent dip in bookings, the long road to sustain profitability, competition, these are real factors.
So the bottom line for anyone listening, for you stock explorers, is that monitoring those milestones we just listed is absolutely crucial. That's how you'll gauge if DWave can turn Advantage2's promise into consistent financial success.
Precisely. The tech is exciting, no doubt, but investment success hinges on execution and market adoption, translating into strong, predictable financial performance.
We hope this deep dive has given you a much clearer picture of the Advantage2 launch and what it means for DWave. It's definitely a fascinating story unfolding in the quantum space.
It certainly is. It'll be interesting to watch how it plays out over the coming quarters and years.
Okay, that wraps up our exploration for today. If you found this useful, please do subscribe to Stock Explorers for more deep dives like this. Hit that like button and turn on notifications so you don't miss out. Thanks for tuning in.